I'm Amrita Kaylee.
And I'm Namamrita. Welcome to Nectar Talks, from the heart of New Ramanreti, the largest Hare Krishna community in North America and the home of thousands of Bhakti Yoga practitioners.
In our ongoing interviews, we dig deep into our search for loving connections with Krishna and each other.
With you, we hope to uncover the real-life stories and inner journeys of our vibrant community of friends and special guests.
Like bees searching for nectar, we seek to extract pearls of wisdom from how they live their lives and the lessons they can impart to us and our listeners.
If you're seeking nectar, look no further.
All right, let's get started.
Hare Krishna, everybody, and welcome back to Nectar Talks. We are on episode today, and Amrita Kaylee is back from being out for a couple of episodes with her new baby daughter. So we're excited about that. And we have a very great guest today that I'm going to let Amrita Kaylee introduce. So let's get right to it. How are you doing, Amrita?
Hare Krishna. I was just trying to get myself unmuted. I'm doing great. How are you, Namamrita?
Doing well.
I'm so happy to be here tonight, especially with Nandanandana Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I was chatting with somebody earlier who I don't know from Boston, who was very excited to see this interview tonight and called you the real deal. That has always been my impression of you. Not only that, but really funny, really easy to talk to, and really serious about Krishna consciousness. Just as a quick bio, Nandanandana Prabhu has been practicing Krishna consciousness for 30 years. She joined in Boston and spent a huge chunk of that time there and has had several adventures in the interim, which we're hopefully going to hear all about tonight. And now she's living in Gainesville, and she is the manager of Krishna Lunch, and she's also on the management team for the whole Krishna House, and she's been doing that since 2017. Thank you so much for coming on with us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Are you ready?
I am.
Okay, so you were telling me that you were born and raised in Connecticut, and you lived there with your family and your brother until you were 18, and you moved to Boston with a group of friends.
Yeah.
When I think of Boston in the early 90s, I think of real world Boston, and it couldn't be cooler. What led you there, and what was it like for you at that time?
Connecticut's just basically boring. So my friends wanted to move to Boston. You know, when you're young, you want to live in a city. And I thought, I can go to school in Boston. There's, I think, over 100 colleges and universities in Boston. So my friends wanted to move there, and I thought, why not? It would be really interesting. And so we packed up and left Connecticut.
Got it. Yeah, I've actually heard a lot of kids who are hanging out in New York, where all the
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I didn't want to steal Namamrita's thunder, but since his internet's out, I'm going to. He really wanted to ask you about how you joined and how that may have been through the hardcore scene. I think I see him now. I think he's wearing a special shirt even to
commemorate,
pay homage to that. Exactly. Go ahead,
I think I got frozen there for a minute.
Go ahead.
I was just sharing that by the way, I am wearing my shelter t-shirt in honor of, I hear that your joining might have had something to do with the punk hardcore scene, and I'm a big fan of that kind of music. So I think it paused there because the connection, but I was just saying that I've heard so many stories of all the kids going to shows in New York City. Yeah, they're often from Connecticut or Westchester.
Yeah.
Maybe you said, it was a little bit boring out on the outskirts.
It's Connecticut's right in between Boston and New York. So you either went to New York or you went to Boston. And then oftentimes we would travel back and forth the New York kids would come to Boston and the Boston kids would go to New York. So it was, there was a lot of, you know, in the Northeast, the states are very close together and they're not huge. So going around between New York, New Jersey, even Philly and Boston was common back then.
Yeah. So would you mind sharing a little bit about how you joined and perhaps the connection with the hardcore scene and all that?
Yeah, it was, well, okay. The thing is I was a skater, and when you skate, you get hungry. And someone told me that there was free food at the Hare Krishna temple.
There you
And
go.
I hadn't heard of it. I don't even think I knew what the Hare Krishnas were, because a friend of mine had told me, and he said, there's free food there. And I said, well, there's no such thing. And he said, no, really, if you go there, it's free. I said, well, there has to be strings attached. There's no such thing as a free meal. And he said, oh yeah, look there's a picture from Boston. And he said, no, there's no strings attached, but they are kind of weird. So I thought, well, that's okay. It's a free meal. It's okay if they're a little weird. So I went and got a free, you know, I went and to the Sunday feast. And that was back, I don't know, there's for people who are here in Alachua, you all know Madhava. Madhava was the cook in Boston when I joined.
Okay.
So I think his sweet rice converted me, because I would think about it all week. Think I got to go back and get that Hare Krishna sweet rice. And that was, of course, Madhava was cooking at the time. So I went a few times, but really, I did think it was a little strange, and then I didn't go again for some time. And then I started dating someone who was part of the hardcore scene, and he brought me back to the temple again. And same thing, we were just kind of going for the free food, because he didn't want to push me too much. He liked the philosophy, but he didn't want to push me. So we just kept going for free food. And then I felt bad that, well, I don't know if I want to say felt bad. I felt like it looked bad. Right. So I thought, you know, maybe I should go sit in a class so it doesn't look like I'm just coming for the free food, even though I am. But at least for show, I'll sit in the class. And then, and also Keishi Hanta, I believe, was the one giving class when I went to the Sunday feast. And when I heard the class, I don't remember what it was about. I just remember thinking, you know, this is what we're supposed to be doing, actually. This is what we do with our life. And I don't remember why or what he said. It was just like, you know, when you're in the middle of doing something and you get distracted, and then someone reminds you, it's like, why did I come to the refrigerator? Like, to get this out of there. I was like, okay, all right, now I remember. So it was that sort of feeling. It was like, oh yeah, that's right, this thing we're supposed to be doing. And so then that was it. I was riding my bike to Mangalarti in Boston autumn season. It was very cold, but it was like I picked up where I left off.
Now, when you say you picked up where you left off, was there any kind of religious upbringing in your childhood, or is it kind of like you connected from a past life type of thing?
Both. We did go to church when I was younger. I did always believe in God. And so I just I wasn't like I was seeking, though. I knew there was a God, and that was about it.
Right.
And then when I just heard the philosophy, it just was like I remembered what I should be doing.
Nice.
Wow. So at that time, Shelter was picking up and was becoming pretty famous. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, there was, you know, if you went to a Hare Krishna Sunday feast, the shoes on the shoe rack were all Vans. It was just loaded. In fact, some hippie guy wrote a book about traveling through America, and he said, if you want a free pair of Vans, go to the Hare Krishna temple. He actually wrote it in a book.
So for those who aren't familiar, Vans are like skater shoes.
Yeah.
Such a beautiful time in the history of the movement, actually.
Yeah. And so, and you know, my boyfriend at the time, Jay, he was friends with Raghunath, and Raghunath had just started Shelter, and the year I really started coming around was when Shelter, I don't know if it was their first tour or maybe second tour. They had just started they had just started their band because before they were Youth of Today. And that was a popular band. And then when they became Devotees, it became Shelter. And so they were going around touring and, I don't know, doing outreach, basically preaching.
Right.
And so I can't say that it totally was unconnected how I came to the temple, because Jay knew about Krishna consciousness and he was friends with them, and they were, and we were listening to their music, and at the end of their albums there was always a lecture, a class given by one of the gurus. So it was all kind of interconnected at the time. That was what was going on. That's how a lot of people were coming to the temple. A lot of people.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are still around.
Right. Yeah. Not everybody in the movement knows it, but I mean, there's, especially here in the US, I mean, there's just probably hundreds of kids who are still, connected to the bhakti practice, who were introduced to it by Shelter and 108, and what they call the Krishna core bands. Yeah. Very cool.
So at some point, you and your boyfriend ended up traveling with Shelter?
Yeah, right? So the Gitanagari, the farm in Pennsylvania, used to do a lot of festivals, and people from Boston and New York would travel there, in Philly. And Shelter would sometimes use Gitanagari to host a retreat. And so we went to Gitanagari a few times, and one of the times we went there was when 108 had just formed. And Parmananda, he wasn't initiated at the time yet. I think he was still Purcell. Yeah. Yeah. And he told me and my boyfriend that, Braj Kishore, who was Vic at the time, said Braj Kishore had just gotten initiated, because I remember trying to remember his name. And I was trying to remember all these Sanskrit words. And it was Braj Kishore. It's got the word key in it. I got to remember key. So I was trying to remember his name, but he was telling us, Braj Kishore, they started this new band called 108, and it's really good. And we went in their Shelter band, and he put the CD in, and we listened to it, like, wow, that's really good. And he said, we're all going on tour this summer. And Kate, what's her name now? Kaylee Lolita. Yeah. She, they asked her to play in the band, guitar or bass. I always get those mixed up.
Guitar.
This is the thing. Yeah, guitar. These are the things I don't pay attention to. The details. The bottom line. The bottom line, she was playing. She was playing in the band. Yeah. So she wanted some women to travel on the tour.
I see.
And so she asked me, she's like, do you have a band? Do you have, it's like, how can we get a bunch of women together? So I said, well, I have a job, I go to school, and I don't have a band. So I don't know. So then I told Jay, I was like, yeah, I don't know. What do you think? And he's like, oh, it'd be fun. And I said, yeah, but I have a job, I'm going to school, and, we don't have a band. Right. So we drove home so after that weekend retreat, and after they told us about that, we drove home, got into the apartment, and there was a message on my answering machine, because it wasn't voicemail back then. There was actually a little cassette tape with a message that you had to rewind. So there was a message that said, literally, a friend of mine that I worked with said, don't bother showing up to work because it burned to the ground. And I was like, okay, well, there's one thing down. I don't have a job. So then I thought, okay, what about the apartment? And so I went to school, and one of my classmates said, you know, anyone who's subletting for the summer, we need an apartment. I was like, all right, there's the apartment. So the last thing is the van. So I called my father, who's a mechanic. And sometimes people would just leave their car because they didn't want to pay to have it fixed, and he would just fix it and give it to us. So I asked him, did anyone leave a van? And he said, no. So I said, all right, so the third one we don't. I said, all right, well, call me if anything comes up. So it was the very next day, he called me and said, you're not going to believe it. And I was thinking, I think I will believe it at this point, Someone who he was friends with, he used to work for him, got a new van and asked if my father knew anybody who needed a van. He was just going to give it away.
Wow.
So there was our van. So then we made the arrangements. And Shelter at the time lived at the Philly temple, because in the basement they had a practice space. They had some soundproof room in the basement where they could practice. So we went to Philly for a month before the tour, and then we went on the tour with the van.
Mm-hmm. How long was the tour?
I don't remember, 2 or 3 months.
Okay.
I mean,
Fun.
things seem longer when you're younger. Yeah, I mean, it's not easy to travel with large groups of people. I think we had up to 20 people at one point. We had a bus, we had a couple of vans. We had some kid from Germany came and joined the tour for some time. People were hopping on and off the tour at different times.
Right.
And so the way it worked was at a show, they would always do a kirtan before they started to play their set.
Right.
And so we would have incense and they would blow a conch shell and there would just be this crazy kirtan. And at one point, Ritavaja Swami traveled with us and he led some of the kirtans. And then sometimes they would do Raghunath would do bhajans outside the show, either before or after. It was really, and then during the show, we'd have a book table set up. Mm-hmm. And so we would, they would do their show, play all their songs. Raghunath would always tell his stories. And it was nice, Raghunath, people would heckle him from the audience sometimes. Most of the kids were really into it, but someone would heckle and you just completely ignore them. You would just keep telling the story like they didn't exist. And he just focused on the kids who were interested. Yeah. And then after the show, people would get books. They would interview Raghunath. He would answer questions about Krishna consciousness and then pack up and on to the next place. Yeah. And Kendra and I would make Simply Wonderfuls and pass them out at the show. And so there was a prasadam distribution. There were books. There was kirtan. There was basically everything you'd find at a Hare Krishna program with hardcore music mixed in. Yeah, yeah. I got to tell you, my introduction to the band was when I was still living in France. I was 18 years old. My dad, who's a good friend of Raghunath and Paramananda, hooked me up to be a one-day roadie for their work tour in 1998 in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. So I got to be in the van with them. I actually kicked the drummer in the head by accident. I still feel bad about that because we were all shoved in that van. But, I grew up in Gurukul, and especially in Europe, it's a little bit, there's the whole thing about the sects and the cults at the time. And so I kind of came from that background of being a little paranoid and even bullied for being a devotee. Mm-hmm. And so I go to this show in New Jersey, and I help them carry their guitars onto the stage and all that. And I'm standing on the side of the stage as they begin their first song, which was the song Shelter. Mm-hmm. In the middle of that song, they break down and they chant Nama Om Vishnu Padaya. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm seeing these just hundreds of kids just smashed against this metal fence in front of the stage, just chanting to their top of their lungs, Nama Om Vishnu. Yeah. And I was just blown away. I mean, they all knew it.
No idea that this was happening.
It's funny. They used to end the show. That song is the song they used to end the show with.
Yeah, so that day they started the show with it.
Yeah. I guess they kicked it off sometimes, but everybody knew the Prabhupada's pranams.
Yeah, very, very neat. So, I'm thinking about you're biking to Mangalarti, then you go on this tour.
Yeah.
And, I don't know you that well, but now I see you're a full-time dedicated devotee. Can you tell us a little bit about that transition from, growing up and going to school and you had the job? How did you transition into kind of committing most of your time to service?
It wasn't really a transition. I just did it. I guess because I'm trying to remember back to that. I mean, I just did as much as I could while I could. So most of the time I lived outside the temple, so I always had a job. And whenever I could go to the temple and do service, I would. So I helped cook the Sunday feast, I helped cook the Wednesday feast. I would do books during the Christmas marathon on Saturdays. Just whatever, as much as I possibly could. Mm-hmm. On Harinams, we would have Harinams in Harvard Square on Saturdays. So I don't know if that's what you're kind of looking for, but I didn't really, it wasn't a kind of a gradual thing. It was just adding it in.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
At first, I was wondering if at that time, because of the hardcore scene, and you were describing to me earlier this shift from sort of a more intense brahmachari, sort of environment in the Boston Temple. And then the scene comes on and it's vibrant and young and I guess a little bit more relevant and accessible to people, in that scene. And I thought maybe it would be dominated by men, but you were saying that it wasn't actually, that there was a lot of women that were joining at that time and it was really fun for you.
Yeah, I mean, there were, when I first started, it's good that the shelter tour came when it did because it was right in the middle of a transition between one temple president and another. And before that transition, it was that kind of heavy brahmachari temple where they couldn't even answer a question that a woman asked. It was the other extreme. It was like, can you tell me where the broom is? And then, it's just, so no, you can't tell me, or, should I ask someone else? Should I send out a search party? So it was like that in the beginning. And I remember thinking, this isn't a philosophy.
Right.
This is just people who don't know how to apply it, or at least partially don't know how to apply it. You could see they're chanting, they're getting up early, doing all this stuff, they're doing books, they're doing outreach. So that was nice. But that part where with the relationships with other people was just, they kind of were missing the mark. And I thought, anyways, maybe someday it'll improve. So then we went on the shelter tour, and it was so different because it was just a group of devotees. It wasn't like the male devotees and the Matajis.
It's like a family.
It was like a family, and everyone just did what they could. They just all participated, and it was nice. And then I was thinking, when we went back, I was thinking, what's it going to be like? What's it going to feel like when we go to the temple? And so when we went back, they were just switching to a new temple president because the other one had gotten married and was moving. And then the new temple president, it kind of went, it somehow, the way he did things really attracted a lot of young people to move into the temple. But the brahmachari thing was still, it was kind of like, he kind of had that mood. He was from Europe, and he kind of still had that mood, but you could tell that he was still young enough that it's almost like he thought it should be that way, but he didn't want it to be. And so he kind of fluctuated back and forth between it being a little fanatical, but still wanting everyone to have fun. And because everyone was young and came through the same scene, they just didn't want to be like that. They just wanted to have fun. So all the young men and women, they got along perfectly fine. And we all worked together, and we did a lot of fun stuff. And he had a system where, at the Sunday program, you couldn't just hang out with your clique. You had to go and talk to new people. It's like, you invited them here, now talk to them. And so I feel like that was part of the reason why it was very personal. So that was part of the reason why a lot of people were moving in, because people were there for them and talking to them and answering their questions. It wasn't just, okay, come to our temple and then leave us alone while we eat. It's just really people went and talked to each other. So the mood was a lot different. It was like what Krishna House is now, in a sense. Just a lot of young people. The temple was packed. And then, of course, when you get new leadership, sometimes temples empty out. So it really depends on how the leader conducts things and whether or not it attracts people. But there was a phase of time where it was really just constant outreach, constant Harinam, going to colleges and teaching at classes and things like that. It was nice.
So while you were, I guess you weren't living in the temple, you were living outside the temple for the most part and coming.
Yeah.
You were engaged in all these different types of services. Like, were you focused in one area?
Mostly cooking.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah. Madhava taught me some things, and so mostly I went into the kitchen and cooked and helped with the prasadam distribution.
Did you know that you would end up loving cooking? Did you love cooking already? Or
yeah, I liked cooking.
Okay.
I liked cooking, yeah. And I liked eating. So I guess because I came for the free food, Krishna put me in the kitchen. It's like, now you can cook it. So yeah, that was where I plugged in.
Makes me want to jump to your current service as What is the actual position? Is it director of the Krishna Lunch program? Or
Yeah, Krishna Lunch manager.
manager?
Especially because I spent so many years in Boston, eventually I became the kitchen manager. It means I managed the schedule for cooking the offerings, and I cooked for pretty much every festival because I prefer to cook for festivals rather than attend them.
Yeah.
Which is good because someone's got to do it. And the previous head cook, she preferred attending the festivals as opposed to cooking. So we switched. And so that's what I did. So I did a lot of that and cooking the Wednesday feast. We experimented a lot with different things and cooking, always large quantity.
Did you say Wednesday feast?
Yeah, we had a Wednesday feast. We had a Sunday feast. Wednesday feast was the food was everything but Indian, unless I was in a rush. Indian food's very quick to cook. And if I was late, I would cook Indian. But otherwise, we would just try all kinds of different things. And then Sunday, we would always cook Indian. Mm-hmm. So having done that, then when I came here, I helped with changing the menu on certain days because we look at the numbers, how many people come through Krishna Lunch and which days are slower than others. And at first they had attributed Monday as being a slow day because, it's after the weekend and there's not as many people on campus maybe. And I was thinking, I don't know, let's try a new menu and see what happens. And we did, and the numbers went up. So so I started to slowly switch some menu items and then we just keep an eye on the numbers, how did, up or down. And then basically just being on campus when pre-pandemic, we were serving between 1,000 and 1,400 people a day. And so we had to make sure we never ran out.
Right.
That picture on the right, that's with Krishna Kitchen actually. Mm-hmm. We had to make sure, managing the Krishna Lunch on campus means making sure we never run out of food, making sure that the line is moving along at a good pace, making sure people aren't, you see people trying different ways to kind of sneak in and, put fake tickets in the box or something like that. So we had to watch out for that and just keeping everything moving because, we would serve out of the 5-gallon trays, those deep trays, and you go through a tray every 10 minutes. So many people, and we have 2 lines. So it's just this constant, we use the airline cart. So it's just constant taking trays out of the carts, which some people can't lift.
I got some of those airline carts from my old airline.
Oh yeah, that's right. Shruti told me about that. Yeah. They've lasted a long time. We fix them up, paint them up every once in a while.
They're like eternal.
They're great. They're actually perfect. But so just doing that was the entire time nonstop busy. During the pandemic, it slowed down. We're serving between maybe 300 and 500 people a day, so it's a little slower. Yeah. But still just being out there, making sure we have the proper quantities, making sure everything's going well, unloading the truck on time, loading up the truck on time. Oh, you guys really did your research on Facebook.
Oh, that's Mother Madhuri Leela for you. She does a lot of
That's my Janmastami. Those are that's Radhastami on the top left. And then Janmastami, and when we were in Potomac, bottom left and on the right. Those are Janmastami meals. I'd offer a few meals throughout the day.
Beautiful.
To deities.
I'm really fascinated by the, not only the quantity cooking aspect of what you all do at the Krishna Lunch program, but tell us a little bit more about kind of the inner workings, you got to manage the lines and the fake tickets and the trays that empty out. Give us a little bit more insight on the inner workings of such a massive lunch program that's just, offering prasad to just
so we have those tilt skillets, which hold about 40 gallons of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so during pre-pandemic, we would do for each prep, we would fill those twice. So sabji would be, the ones on the left where Gurnatraj is stirring. That's the tilt skillet, and there's another one closer to the camera.
Okay.
So basically, it takes 2 of those to make the sabji, 2 of those to make the rice, 1 to make halava, and so on. And then what they do is, so they'll go in about 4:30 in the morning when we have to cook that quantity, and they finish about 9 o'clock. On Fridays, they wouldn't finish till probably about 10. Friday's the biggest day. Friday's like stocked to the top of those braziers with the potatoes and everything. So they would just spend the morning cooking, and they would fill up the airline carts and put the airline carts outside. Then such a hit would come and load the truck, and we have to load all of our other things, forks and napkins and serving spoons and all the things we need. We would fill up 3 large igloo coolers, the 3 big, I can't remember how many gallons those are. We fill those up with just salad. And we would have already 2 carts filled with salad, and then we'd have 2 coolers filled with salad, 1 cooler filled with dressing. I think on Fridays we'd bring 50 bottles of dressing, and the bottles are 32 ounces. So they're really addicted to the dressing.
Yeah, the dressing I know is a major deal, right?
Yeah, it's a major deal. It's like they always say that. They come through the line and say, "I love the salad." And it's like, no, you don't. You love the dressing. The salad's just iceberg. It's like, I know you don't. You're not coming for iceberg. It's just a vehicle. The salad's just a vehicle for the dressing.
You could make anything a vehicle for that dressing. Grass,
yeah, exactly. And
anything.
They do.
Rocks.
They do. Rocks. When they and if they want the dressing on everything, they call it a full Krishna. So we have a lot of people throughout the day saying, "I'll take a full Krishna." So it's nice. And you hear, if you sit on the campus long enough, I used to chant my rounds sometimes on the campus in the evening. And if you sit there long enough, you can hear people walking by the plazas saying, "I love Krishna." They don't call it Krishna lunch. I don't know what they just say. "I love Krishna. I can't wait." Yeah, it's like,
so great.
That's how they always say. It's like, "We got to get Krishna tomorrow. I love Krishna."
Wow.
So then we pack up the truck. We drive over. We have to unload and set everything up. We do that between 10:30 and 11. You get everything set up, all the airline carts. And now it's a little more tedious because we have to set up the bank teller windows for the pandemic. So we got these pieces of plexiglass in these frames, and oh my God, we're going to have a bonfire with those things when the pandemic's over, because they're such a pain. They're so cumbersome, but we have to do it,
Right.
So we set those up every time, and then we serve between 11 and 1:30, close it down, pack up the truck, bring it back. We have to unload the truck when we get there, and then there's a crew that deals with putting everything away, dealing with the leftovers. Before the pandemic, we'd bring leftovers to the homeless shelter or to Food Not Bombs or to, just different places that would take the leftovers. It's a little more difficult during the pandemic to deal with it. But so people would deal with that afterwards. And then the cooks, they prepare for cooking the night before. The cook right now, he'll bring all the stuff into the kitchen because it's cases and cases and cases of things, cases of rice, cases of canned beans and tomatoes. And so you just lugging all that in takes about a half hour. So he gets that all set up the night before, and then he just goes in and cooks in the morning. It's a little less cooking now, but we have 2 cooks during pre-pandemic. Those quantities, we have 2 cooks cooking.
Gotcha.
And Krishna Lunch has been running continuously since 72?
71.
71.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this is the 50-year. We're on the 50-year anniversary.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
And it's 5/5. It's May 5th.
Today.
We did that on purpose. I'm just thinking about how I joined because of Krishna Lunch. I remember exactly, I was visiting my sister who was in college, and I remember it was Spaghetti Wednesday, and I remember exactly what I ate. It's such a
spaghetti.
Yeah. It's such a reliable, predictable service for the students on campus, and it means so much. I think that, even in the pandemic, they know that they can go out and that you have plexiglass up and that they can get their Krishna. They can get their full Krishna.
Yeah.
That makes a huge impact. And it has brought so many people to Krishna consciousness as well. And what is the mood like? Can you tell us a little bit about the outreach mood at Krishna Lunch itself?
Well, the idea is that they're just coming for lunch. They're not coming to get preached to. So all we do is befriend them. If they come through the line, we say, hey, how's it going? How are you doing? They talk. And then we have a kirtan going on. So obviously we're Hare Krishnas, they can see it's called Krishna lunch. We have a kirtan going on. Adikarta's there with his books. And so when they get to know us and they feel comfortable with us, they'll start asking questions and they'll actually come to our programs. So that's the mood there. The mood there is just to welcome people and give them their lunch in a reasonable amount of time so they can get to class, because oftentimes they're pressed. They have to wait in line. I try to move the line as quickly as I can. So we, when they're coming up to the plates table, we may ask them some questions or talk to them a little while they're waiting. But once they go through the line, I know that they have to get to class. So I try to make sure that they can have enough comfortable time to sit and eat their meal and get on to their next class. Mm-hmm. And then because there's so many people that have been coming for years, almost every day for years, their whole college career. And so, yeah, they get to know us and they make friends with the devotees, and then they come to our programs that we have at the Krishna House. At one point, pre-pandemic, we had 5 programs a week at the Krishna House. And then it all came to a screeching halt. But now we have 2 programs a week.
Mm-hmm. Basically outdoors. Run by the residents who live there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Facilitated by the residents.
Yeah.
Some of whom joined because of Krishna Lunch.
Yeah. And other temples send devotees to us to get trained. Mm-hmm. They know we have ashram space. They know we have a training program here, and they'll send devotees from all over to come and learn Krishna consciousness here.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So you mentioned when we were looking at the prasadam pictures, I just have to say, how you were saying, she played the guitar, the bass. I don't know. Just bottom line, she played an instrument, or she was in the band. For me, looking at the different, I cooked in that kitchen, but looking at the different equipment, I don't know one thing from the other when it comes to quantity cooking.
Right.
And you have, just hearing you talk about it, the precision and the passion that you have is really inspiring. But you mentioned the picture next to it, which was Krishna Kitchen. I only know a little bit about Krishna Kitchen. I know that it was, I believe, started by Nitai, a wonderful devotee, and was very famous at Burning Man, which is this crazy big festival out in Nevada in the desert.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us how you got into that and what that was like for you?
So I had moved from Boston to Northampton, Massachusetts to start a center. So basically I just rented. Yeah. So basically I just rented an apartment and put out some smart boxes for people to learn about the program. And, I went to different places around town and just got to know people. And so people started coming to the house, but during that summer, so I first got there in January 2011, and then I got a phone call from the Thai somewhere in May, I think, or April, saying that he heard that I cook, because I used to cook all throughout the East Coast. I would cook often for Bhakti Tirtha Swami's Vyasa Puja. I would cook for Rinasur Prabhu's Vyasa Puja. I would be called to festivals to cook. Uh-huh. And so your name starts to get around, and then people call you to cook. So Nitai called me to cook, and he said that we do this thing called Krishna Kitchen, and he wanted to do, there was a local festival in New England he first wanted me to cook for. So I was like, okay, he paid, and I needed to support my center, so I needed that. So I went and cooked at one of the programs, and then he said, all right, we're doing a tour on the West Coast in the summer, and I could pay you. And I thought, okay, summer can be slow. I'll just tell my students that I'll be gone for a couple of months, and then I'll be able to pay rent for a few months, and it'll keep me going. So we flew out to the West Coast and basically just drove up and down the West Coast, setting up a kitchen, cooking for a festival, breaking down, driving to the next place. Same thing. Nitai had these military tents that you had to take a class to set up.
Did he conduct the class, or was it some outside?
The people who sold it. The people who sold it. It was in Oregon, I think. And we went and took the class, and it was this whole systematic way. Of course, it's military, his whole systematic way of setting up. They were really good tents because most of those events took place in the desert because they liked having really loud music and blowing things up. That was the thing out there. And so we're just always in a desert, and there was always sandstorms. And so these tents had windows with flaps, and they were meant to be set up in a desert, I guess. They were, desert color military tents. And so we cooked in there. And then Pushpavan, I don't know if he's watching tonight. Pushpavan came and met up with us at Burning Man. And he brought his truck that he drives, his 18-wheeler. He brought the front part, and it was air conditioned. So sometimes, and he had his Shalagram Shila. So sometimes we would go in there and cool down a little bit. But it was, when you cook in a kitchen in the desert feels air conditioned compared to the kitchen. So it gets really hot. Burning Man was around 94 degrees during the day, and that felt cool compared to the kitchen. So we were cooking for different camps at Burning Man. And then at night it got cold because it's the desert. And it was definitely an experience. They build a temple there every year, and the devotees would go there and chant. Do a little kind of Harinam there at the temple sometimes. And then we had people, Nitai's wife, Mandali, she had a setup where people can offer incense to Jagannath. So we had a setup where people could come, they get prasadam, they could do a little service. They would come and help do cut up and things like that. It was really nice. It's a nice mood there. People are there voluntarily. So their mood is not just paid workers. Their mood is we're setting up these art installations and we're here to serve. So they would come and help out in the kitchen sometimes. And they were always all friendly. I mean, there's always a couple of jerks, but basically they're all friendly. And it was really nice to work with them.
So you were working with Krishna Kitchen during your time pioneering this town, and it was called
Northampton.
Northampton.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So you would take breaks, travel around to cook for feasts and festivals, and meanwhile you were heading up this project. Do you have a realization that you can share with us about what it's like to basically start in some place where Krishna consciousness isn't yet, and what that felt like for you?
Well, it's interesting. The way I don't know if this will answer your question directly, but I just felt like that what I wanted people to do was come to the program, feel comfortable, and really be able to ask whatever question they needed to ask. When we would do Bhagavad Gita classes on Mondays, and it's hard because I was there alone, and devotees from Boston would come and help sometimes, but mostly I had to conduct the class, teach them how to do kirtan. I would have to cook the meal, and so on. So, and then go out and try to find people to come and take part in this. And I would try to get them to help. I mostly attracted older professionals who had a job all day, so they helped as much as they could. But then I would do, every Sunday I would do a japa brunch. So I would invite them to come and try chanting japa, and then we would talk about what they experienced when they chanted and what the experience was like. So it was nice. It was nice to just see people sit there and be able to discuss and participate. And then then at a certain point in my life, I had decided that I wanted to get deities. And you and I were talking about this, and I wanted to get Gorni Tai. It just was time. I felt like it was time to get deities. And without going into all the details, well, I could say this much. I ordered the deities from Jaipur, which is like the marble capital of India, from what I understand. And I had asked them, how long does it take to get the deities? And they said 1 month. And so I thought, okay, so that means 5 months, right? Because it's India. So nothing ever really happens in the time frame that they say. And so I thought, okay, 5 months. And that's pretty much exactly what it was. It was 5 months. And I had gone to Boston because Boston still hadn't gotten a large quantity cook. So they kept bringing me into, they would give me a donation and they would have me cook for their festivals. So I had gone to Boston for John Mastami to cook. And while we were cooking, I got a voicemail saying that I had something came through customs at the Boston airport, and that was the Deities. It was Nitai Gaur Sundar. So they arrived in Boston on Janmashtami. And then we went on Prabhupada's, but I was too busy cooking to go get them. So I went on the next day in Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja to pick them up. So I got them, brought them back to Northampton. We had a ceremony to welcome them, and we had a feast, and the devotees came. And I felt like it really changed the program. Because now when these devotees came to my program, we were chanting for the deities. And we knew that the food was offered to the deities. It made it more personal. And so what I did was I started teaching. I made every one of them learn how to lead kirtan. You know, even though they were very new, there's no reason for anybody to not get trained early on in how to do things like lead a kirtan, play instruments, give a class. You know, that should happen pretty soon. It used to be, and I don't know if some places are still like this, maybe things have changed a lot, but it used to be that practically had to be around for 15, 20 years before someone asked you to, you know, give a class, or, you know, it was always just that, well, the senior devotees lead kirtan or the senior devotees give class. And then, you know, then that started to change, and it started to be that younger and younger people were learning how to do these things. And I thought, let's just get them started right away. They've been coming to my program for, I think at this point, almost a year. And so I just printed out all the mantras and I let them lead. And no matter how much they messed up, I was like, keep going, just keep chanting. Don't worry about and I would just stop the kirtan and correct it. Okay, it's pronounced like this. Okay, keep going. And that's how they would learn. They would just learn that I'm in front of a bunch of people. I'm going to mess up. It doesn't matter if I mess up. Eventually, the only way you could learn is if you practice. And so I just got them all to learn. I got them all to learn the Prema Dwani prayers. And so one of the students, she visited the New York temple, and she said she felt, you know, it was the exact same program. And she's like, I knew everything. I knew all the mantras, and I knew when to say what, when, and, you know, so it's nice that ISKCON, no matter where you go, that Prabhupada set up a system that it's always the same wherever you go, and you can just plug in. You're not a stranger there. It's not foreign to you. It's just the same thing you do in other places. So you can plug right in.
Yeah.
And so I guess, I don't know if that answers your question. It's kind of a roundabout way, but that was my basic experience.
What I'm hearing from that, you know, living in Jacksonville, I live in Jacksonville, and we're inviting people to take part in Krishna consciousness here, and there's no official temple. So you're saying you're not facilitating an experience for people to passively participate. You're saying give them ownership of the program.
Yeah.
And basically create a family of leaders, almost people who can take charge, who are capable of, you know, and in that way they feel, you know, I belong. I'm a part of this. I'm not just a guest.
I'm not just an observer.
Right. There's that threshold that we cross over from an observer to someone who's engaged in the service. And it sounds like you just have a natural ability to do that for people, to do that with people. And to make them feel comfortable too is huge. You know, like you said, it's not a performance.
Yeah. And that's the biggest, I think the biggest thing that holds people back from doing these things is they're afraid they're going to make a mistake. And so what I would always tell them is like, of course you're going to make a mistake. And you're going to make another one after that and another one after that. And it's like, that's not the point. You don't just do things because you're already perfect at them. You do things because first you have to learn, and then you become good at it. You can't just expect to jump to perfection. So the problem is that people are worried about being judged. That if they make a mistake, everyone's going to think they're an idiot or a loser, or they're going to ridicule them. And so you have to create an atmosphere where it's like, we don't do that here. We don't allow it either. Because everyone's a conditioned soul. Someone's always going to judge. There's always going to be a judge, you know, it's like the Muppet Show, you know, those two judges that were always making fun of everybody. So there's always going to be someone like that. But if you set the mood and you don't allow that to flourish, that judgmental attitude, then even the judgmental person starts to realize, oh, this isn't what we do here. And it actually is helpful for them, because then they realize that's not really that wasn't really a good path I was taking. And then they see that, no, this is what we do, is we support people and we help them, and we encourage them. And so if you're there as the leader saying, it's okay, you made a mistake, please continue the kirtan, then everyone else learns that, oh yeah, it's okay. It's okay, we shouldn't interrupt, and we shouldn't, it's like, but you have to be the leader who says that. You have to be the leader who shows that I'm the one running the show and I think it's not a problem. So, then everybody kind of follows suit, and they realize that, yeah, it's not, let's not make a big deal out of this. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal if you don't know how to pronounce the words yet, or if you forgot which word to say next. Don't make a big drama out of it,
Wow. I just, I love hearing, how you've implemented in all your different services such smart planning and innovation. You're such a doer and a compassionate leader. What are the kind of the areas of Krishna consciousness that really get you going? Obviously the cooking, and you've done so much there, but I know when we first connected, you and I, you were telling me about this really innovative kind of help program that you were involved with.
What program?
I can't even remember exactly what it was, but it was something about how you could help devotees just really apply Krishna consciousness in a practical way. I don't know if you remember.
Well, I don't know if you're referring, because we talked a long time ago, so I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
The GBC College is people who are attending the GBC College have to do a project.
That's right. That's what it was.
And I got kind of tricked into, ended up in 2 different GBC College groups because one person called me before the other person did and said, okay, I'm gonna have you in my group. And I was like, okay, you got to me first. And then the other person was like, okay, all the managers are gonna be in this group. And I was like, damn it. Now I'm into, but that's just the way it is. So it's fine because it's important work. But the first group is that we're starting a program for, we first were thinking mentorship, but then we're thinking more so coaching, that we coach people in their spiritual life so that it empowers them. It's not just that they depend on us to constantly tell them how they should do things, but that we coach them into, same thing, taking charge of your life, your spiritual life. And we just coach people through that. Is that the program you were referring to, or was there something else?
Yeah. That's what it was. Okay. And I mean, you were just giving me some of your insights into just how to make it practical, and I forget what else there was, but basically, what are some of the other projects other than cooking? I know whether it's things you're actively doing, or what's your inclination as far as how you like to encourage people in Krishna consciousness?
There's that. People who are afraid to, everyone has their personality. So, and it can go either extreme. You can use your personality type to do something good, but then sometimes it swings to the extreme where it's annoying to people.
Right.
So I have the tendency to take charge, and that can come in handy, and sometimes it could be annoying. But, I always say that it's like, you can't have it both ways. You can't like it when a person who likes to take charge takes charge only when it's convenient for you. That's just who they are. And a person who maybe doesn't take charge, they're good at something else, like connecting with people and inviting people to, we have one devotee here. Well, he's not here right now, but he's so slow. He's just slow. And when I'm at Krishna lunch, I'm moving fast. I'm like, get it set up, get everything, It's like, and he's just so I'm trying. But the thing is, he's really good at inviting people to programs and making friends with them and making them feel comfortable. He's really good at that. So I think, okay, you can't have it both ways. You can't expect him to be passionate and fast and be really mellow with people. It's one or the other. You know, so everyone's got their thing they're good at. And that thing that they're good at can be annoying sometimes, and it can be very handy sometimes. So you have to take the good with the bad.
Right.
And so for me, that's the thing I like to do, is to encourage people to not wait for everybody else to do something for them, or again, just be a passive observer, but actually take control of a situation. Even, you know, on campuses, you have to relate to the students. You have to tell them what the rules are. You have to, you know, in a nice way.
Right.
But so you really have to show that, well, here's what our rules are during the pandemic. You know, obviously when it's not the pandemic, there weren't really rules. You just get a plate and you get your food. But now we have to tell them a whole spiel. Yeah. So just teaching people to really say, here I am, and here's what our standards are. Do you have any questions? You know, and not be apologetic about it to the point where you just say, I'm really sorry, but if it's okay with you, no, it's just, this is what we do. And we welcome you, but this is what our standards are. So just trying to get people to say, you know, here's what needs to be done, and I'm capable of doing it. And then just going and doing it, and not being afraid that, yeah, but what if I do it and I make a mistake? Or what if I do it, you know, just to get people to really take charge of their spiritual life and work together with other people. Not just that you take charge at everyone else's expense, where you plow through everybody, but just to say, I really take charge of my spiritual life, and in conjunction with working well with other devotees, working in harmony with other devotees, where I'm compassionate towards them, and I really hear them when they tell me that something may need to be improved, but at the same time, not just kind of hiding, you know, or just saying, okay, everybody else does that, but I'm not really good at it, so I'm not going to do it ever. You know, but really just learn how to do things, even if you're not great at it. And then figure out what you like to do.
Yeah, that's such good advice, to always really identify for ourselves, you know, what gets me going that I can apply to Krishna consciousness, because there's just within that, there's going to be unlimited possibilities of service. Has always been my experience. There's so much that can be done.
Oh yeah, and that was your question. What's the other things I like to do? I forgot to answer that. Just real quick, because I know we only have a couple of minutes left. But I do like to teach focused subjects. In other words, I like to take something that's applicable to people's life and see it through scripture and teach it in an organized way, so that they can walk away with something and not have information overload, but just have a focused subject to learn and be able to apply. So that I like to do also.
Can you give us an example?
Well, there's one that I'm working on right now that I think is important for people in general, but especially for devotees, because they tend to be a little more humble, at least they're trying to be, is that to recognize red flags in relationships. So that if you're going to start enter a relationship with someone, know what red flags to look for, so that you can cut out quickly if you need to. You know, if you just say something's not right here, because oftentimes we make excuses. Well, they're a devotee and it's just this, it's just that, and really they have a personality disorder, or they're abusive. And so you have to look for the red flags, and a lot of people don't recognize them. They write them off as something else. And if they recognize them, they could avoid a lot of wasted time, a lot of pain, a lot of, you know, emotional turmoil. They can avoid all that. So that's the next thing I've been working on, but it got busy for some time, and I hadn't had a chance to finish it. So I'm hoping to do that over the summer.
Yeah,
So helpful.
I'm all about saving people time if we can, from our own experiences, because sometimes it can be decades, if not a lifetime, whereas someone who's had a particular experience could give you some really good insights on how to save time.
Yeah, exactly. So stuff like that, and just, you know, obviously that's for, you know, and then there's just scriptural things. There's certain things in scripture you could focus on, Shikshashtakam or things like that, where you just focus on chanting. What does Lord Chaitanya say about chanting properly? what can we learn for it? Or Ravinda Sherpapu does a lot of seminars. He does the Cure of Souls, and he did the Shikshastakam and things like that. It's a focused study. I like that. I like those kinds of things.
So if you lead that study, do you do it at Krishna House, or is it like an online forum?
I guess we could do both at this point. So many people are online because of the pandemic, and we're still on lockdown. Everyone's getting vaccinated, but we want us to wait and see how things go before we open up. Okay. So I would teach the students here, but I would put it online for anybody else who wants to participate.
It sounds wonderful. That would be great.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to the Krishna House reopening to the public.
Me too. Yeah. Sure. Yep. There we are. Soccer. Oh, that's when we went to the Hare Krishna movie.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So we have a couple of questions. I want to acknowledge we have some participants here with us this evening. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Hi, friends.
T, who's T? What's the full name? You're welcome to unmute yourself and ask the question. You're asking something about association with Yamuna Devi and what is Nandanandana Prabhu's diet? Oh, he's anonymous. Secret identity. Okay, well, I'll read the question.
What keeps you so healthy?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
she is asking, what keeps you healthy with such an intense service?
Okay, then there's a question above that. There's a question above that about Yamuna also.
Yeah.
So which one do you want me to answer first? The eat healthy one?
Either one's fine.
Okay. I don't know. Lately, so I'm trying to think of where to start. When I was younger, I had so much energy that I had to go to the gym just so I could sleep. And this was after cooking and playing soccer and all that. I still need to go to the gym and I would get excited when I went to the gym because I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. Because I just had so much. And if I went to bed without doing that, it was like restless leg syndrome. And, it was, so I think that carried me a long way. But I think I might have overdone it a little bit over the years. Well, I mean, it adds up, it all adds up. Doing all that cooking, the Krishna Kitchen tour. There's a picture of me one time sleeping on like a wooden table with a paper towel roll for a pillow. And it was actually very comfortable. That's how tired I was.
Yeah.
But, so, as you get older, your energy starts to go down a little bit. But, so what I try to do, first of all, is whenever I can is go to bed early, because the earlier you go to bed, the better your sleep. Mm-hmm. When I feel my energy down, there's an acupuncturist I go to. Sometimes she prescribes me some traditional Chinese herbs that help the energy. I do kind of natural things to build the blood. Different foods I research to see what's good for that. And lately we set up a little gym here at Krishna House in the tool shed because we can't go to the gym because it's the pandemic. So we just put a few things in there, and I try to work out, 3 times a week. And then I've been getting Adikarta's milk and yogurt. Mm-hmm. And because milk, if it's cooked and eaten properly with spices, it's easy to digest, and it has things that, well, for example, milk, the only way you can get B12 naturally is through meat or dairy. And so when Prabhupada said that milk was brain food, he wasn't kidding, because it has B12, and B12 is for your brain, it's for that whole system. And so I do that. I make like spiced curry with the yogurt. And so I just basically try not to overeat. I try to get enough rest. I try to take foods that are nutritious, and I try to go to the farmer's market whenever I can, because that food has so much more nutrition than the store is when you buy store-bought food, it's kind of like plastic. There's not much value to it. But the farmer's market has so much flavor and nutritional value, and just trying to get out and walk every day and make sure I get fresh air and things like that. That's what I do to kind of try to keep still I get tired, but once I have a job to do, I just kind of do it until I'm done. And then later I think about if I'm tired. So sometimes I'll realize how tired I am later, but when I'm on the mission, I can't stop till it's done.
Yeah. Great question, and
Mhm.
thank you so much for answering that. That's I'm
Yeah.
going to take some good notes from that for myself.
And stay hydrated in Florida. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
12 cups a day. So. Yeah, just keeping in shape. I mean, when I was in high school, I was on the swim team, I was on the basketball team, and then I was going to gyms after that. And I was if you keep in shape, if you're always exercising, it really keeps your energy up. It keeps you stronger and healthier.
Mm-hmm.
So I see that someone asked if I had any association with Yamuna Devi.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. It turns out that in I think it was 1994. She was living in DC with Dean Attorney at Henry's house. He gave them a whole wing. He had this huge place in DC, and they got one whole wing of the house, which was a dining room, a kitchen, a bedroom, a living room, another room. It was big. And she had gotten deities from Prabhupada, personally gave her, and she was reinstalling them. And Jaini Tai, who back then was Jay, he knew her, and he invited me and my boyfriend to go to stay at their house for the weekend to attend the ceremony and help her with the cooking.
Mm-hmm.
So we went and stayed for the weekend, and we would have a Bhagavad Gita class in the morning, and it didn't matter what the verse was. The class was about Prabhupada. That's what she talked about. She'd talk a little bit about the verse, and then she would talk about Prabhupada. Always like it was a father that she just visited recently. It was always like, Prabhupada said this, and then went to, and she would tell us stories about Prabhupada. And then she was the same way. She wanted everyone to participate. So she had these instruments and these random instruments in her house. And she would tell everyone take an instrument and play it. Doesn't matter if you know how to or not, just play. And so she would lead a kirtan. And I remember back in the cassette tape days, I had some cassette tapes and a recorder, and I recorded the kirtans. And I actually just found the tape the other day. Dave Yvonne gave me a cassette tape player, and I found that tape that we have of her singing and giving Bhagavad Gita class. So I want to try to render that into MP3 or something. Precious. But yeah, and I was listening and I was like, wow, her voice is so nice. And then you heard us, it's just like so bad, it's painful. But she didn't act, for her, it didn't matter. It was just kirtan. And we all had our little instrument that we played, and we all sang, and she just got absorbed in it. And then she was very organized in the way she planned a feast. So I guess seeing her do that influenced me, because the way I plan feast is you first figure out the menu, then you write out your boga list, then you figure out which day you're going to do what you're going to prep in advance. And that's how she did it, by the day. Today we're going to do this, then tomorrow we're going to cook that, and then on the day we're going to do these things. So it's very organized. And so she invited a few people. Bhakti Tirtha Swami, Brajalila was there, Mother Siddhamani, and Ravina Sri Prabhu. And then what are their names? Christy and can't remember their names. They did that artwork, The Light of the Bhagavat. I can't remember their names. Yeah. Chris and I can't remember his name. Beautiful book. Yeah. So they came for the program, and she's, I still have some pictures from it too. Her altar was very beautiful. And so that was the one weekend. That was the association I had with her. And then her cookbook was my kitchen Bible. It was every feast practically I ever made in Boston over the years was from her cookbook. Wow. It's actually, her cookbook is amazing, because if anybody wants to be an excellent cook and be praised for their cooking, they just should follow her recipes. That's it, And I would always tell people, the feast is great. It's like, it's Yamuna's recipes. And if people just use that cookbook, they can make amazing things. She has such amazing recipes in there, and it's very thorough instructions.
Yeah. What a great reminder of Yamuna's book. I've heard so much about that book because my father was one of the team members when they put that book together, and I've heard so much about it.
Yeah, it's a great book.
Well, thank you so much, Nandanandana Prabhu. This has been
it's wonderful.
Really wonderful talk, and it's great to know you, to get to know you more, and thank you for joining us as we keep working our way through our wonderful community of devotees. I want to thank all of the devotees that joined us on Zoom today. And we're trying something new here at Nectar Talks. We want to see if we can increase the volume of interviews. So Amrita, Kaylee, and I are going to be doing some pre-recorded interviews, which take a little bit less organizing and planning. So our first one, which will be the next episode, is with Shanka Prabhu, our wonderful Shanka. And
also a prasadam devotee, 100%.
Yeah, we're on a prasadam theme right now. So look for that. That may be coming out in the next couple of weeks. And again, thank you so much for joining us. And anything else, Amrita Kelly?
I do. I have a burning desire.
I can see it. I can see it on your face.
I just, I have to, I'm just reflecting, Prabhu, on your mood of encouraging everyone and to cut out the fear of failure. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like our bar in Krishna consciousness or in ISKCON is quite high, you know, and I've heard the saying, you know, to be a jack of all trades and a master of one, right?
Mm-hmm. Master of none. If you're a jack of all trades, you're a master of none.
Right.
Okay, so so take the pressure off. You don't even have to be a master of one, just of none.
Right.
Just to, but the important thing is not just to have the self-confidence to try, but to be encouraged and supported by people who will allow you to fail and to be imperfect and to expect it and to smile and work as a friend with you through it. And that's what I see in you. And I think that is what carries the movement forward in such a healthy and positive way, in a way that's really, really relevant to somebody who's coming in brand new off the street and can make a connection like in the heart. So
yeah, I just think it's unrealistic it's not even rational to think that the first time someone tries something, they're going to be an expert at it. It's insanity. It's like, why would you expect them not to make a mistake? Or why would you expect them to get it right the first few times?
Right.
Just like it's unrealistic. It's not even rational. So, you know, and how will people ever learn if they don't try?
And I think this sort of fear can linger years and years and years into practicing. Like what you're saying is very helpful for me. And I've been practicing for, you know, some time now, but to sort of get over that fear of exploring new ground.
Yeah.
And just not being good at it. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean,
you're a special person. And
if it makes you feel better, one time I cooked a Sunday feast and I forgot to put sugar in the halava. And I didn't realize it till it was served, and I was talking to a guest and I took a mouthful and I was like, oh no. And I ran into the temple to tell them to take it down, and on my way in I heard someone go, nice halava. They had already had it. I was like, God damn it. But so yeah, and it happens, but it didn't mean I stopped cooking. It's just like, okay, next time pay attention, you know?
Yeah, just like I totally cut this interview short and trying to end it before Amrita Kelly giving a nice ending to it. So I'm not afraid to fail.
Nandanandana, can I jump in and ask a question? Because if someone wants to contact you after this meeting is over, after this program, how would they do it?
I guess the easiest way, maybe email would be easiest. Should I type it in the thing? Do you think is that a good idea?
Yeah, yes, please.
You can type it in the thing. We'll copy and paste it onto Facebook after.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Any final words?
Oh wait, did I put that in? Oh shoot, hold on. Let me do that again. I just typed it to someone directly. Okay.
There you go.
Okay, so Nandadasi108 @gmail.com, and we'll copy and paste that.
Yep.
onto. Also, shout out to Raghunath and the Prabhus from Shelter for having some part in bringing you to us.
Bringing lots of people. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they did a great job back then. And they faced a lot of criticism, even from devotees that thought that it wasn't a good idea to do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they still kept pushing forward, and it was very successful.
Yeah. Actually, I was trying to comment earlier when you were talking about Kelly Lalita and, your experience with her and just women having an equal place in the movement. She's done an amazing interview on this podcast called Off the Altar. Hare Krishna.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. You told me about that. Yeah.
If you guys haven't heard that, I mean, I really learned a lot about what women have gone through and what work still needs to be done, and it was really insightful. So I just wanted to give a little plug for that one. Yeah.
A lot has changed since back then.
Yeah.
For the better.
Yeah. Thank Krishna for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nandanandana Prabhu.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. We'll see you all soon.
Okay.
We'll see you soon at Krishna Lunch.
Yes, yeah.
Haribo.
Haribo. Do we know who's leading this kirtan?
Mother Madhuri Lila is changing it up on us every week. We get a new kirtan.
Haribo.
Haribo.
Okay, until next time, everyone.